The first fallen leaves are pirouetting at my feet, rising, tumbling, skittering, falling again. The breeze feels colder with the emerging autumn. I'm standing on the foothills of Slieve Donard, mother of the Morns, towering above the other peaks that clamour around like children at her heels, desperate to learn how she grew so tall. The Glen River is gushing and drowns out the sound of my siblings climbing trees. I sit and watch the white water swells, tinged with earthy brown. I feel like a speck of dust among this expanse of forest, shadowed by mountain. Deep clumps of knotted oak roots spread out, a staircase up and up onto an unseen pinnacle. Chafed by walkers, so many walkers, I am nestled out of sight under an alder tree, seeking a pinch of twilight against the brightness and noise of the day. The sound of this gushing mountain river is not dissimilar to the clamour that has been in my brain all week.
That's an extract from this book by Dara McAnulty called Diary of a Young Naturalist. And Martin and I have been reading this book to get some inspiration to do a nature diary writing workshop for you today.
So we're sitting here in a little garden, really, at the edge of a house. It's feeling a little bit forgotten, a little bit left behind, but it's a lovely place to just come and sit, and not sitting underneath a mountain like Dara by a rushing river, but we've got the rushing sound of these trees with this wind, which is like autumn often does, giving us a bit of a stirring, and it makes me feel a bit stirred up. It's quite exciting. It's also a little bit thoughtful. So we were hoping that you'd be encouraged to find a space near you. It could be in your home, it could be a bit of a natural area near where you live, it could be your school grounds, where you can sit from time to time, a place where you like to go and start to write, start to find a voice to describe the things around you, which kind of might turn into the voice that's within you as well.
And the idea is that even if you don't know a lot about nature, once you start going to the same spot over and over again, you start to notice things that maybe you hadn't seen before, and you start to get really interested, and you go off back home maybe and do some research, or take some leaves with you back home and find out what kind of tree it was. And through this, you start to get a bit of a connection with the space. And the more connection you get with that natural space, the more relationship, the more interest, and really the more empathy you have. So that's when you start to think more about the place, the things you love about it, and how it feels to be in that place.
So I call it sit spots, finding a sit spot, and it starts with just describing, literally getting in touch with your senses. It's good to sit still or somewhere comfortable. You can describe the feel of something with your fingertips,
yeah.
the roughness of this bark almost crumbling underneath my fingers.
Do you know what? It's good to do that with your eyes closed, Martin. Have you tried that?
Not really.
So you just have maybe, actually a few minutes when you're just not doing anything and just touching it.
Feels like a stubbly old chin, doesn't it? That's what in my imagination. And then there's the sound straight away. We've already been talking about the leaves in the wind. It's beginning to sound like a beach. So we've gone from sitting in a sort of wooded garden to being beside the sea, because it's just like the rush and roll and roar of the sea. So these are things that I'd be writing just to sort of start my sit spot writing exercise, just describing what I feel, what I see, what I hear, and starting from there.
That's not always an easy thing to write about, but the best thing to do is to not think about it too much. To just take your paper and pen and either draw or write just a few lines, then be still again, or move around to a different spot, and then be still again and write a few more lines or draw another little picture. And I sometimes write lists as well. That can be really good for nature diaries.
So I was writing a little list about something I love, and I thought, well, I love autumn because it's sometimes summer's a bit busy and it's all trying to find your way, and then school starts and work starts and you kind of in the rush of that. But actually, I love the sense of change about autumn. And then it made me just go out and make a list of things that I love about autumn. So I wrote 5 things. I like the change of air in autumn, cooler and fresher. I like the misty mornings in autumn, mysterious and magical. I like picking fruit from the hedges, blackberries and sloes. I like putting on my old favourite woolly jumper, which I've had for years. I like bonfires in the garden, and I like the smell of smoke in the air. So that was the list. That was just things that I like about autumn, and I think as well as describing the time of year and the place, it's kind of, what do I love? So passion in your writing, things that you love. It means that you can write about something for yourself that no one else might want to write about. The things that you love, the things that you feel passionate about can start to come out.
And you know what? Sometimes you have to start writing to know what that is, how you're feeling about something. Because when we start writing, just sort of free writing, probably a bit like you did there, you start off with one thing that you know really for certain, and then if you carry on writing or thinking about it, you actually move into another sort of place where you didn't quite know, or it's a bit more uncertain. But that's a really interesting area to explore. And one of the things that I love about autumn really is that sense of turning inwards, less doing outdoors and more perhaps contemplation, thinking, reflecting, and that often comes out in my writing as well.
And that leads on to the thing that I love, because I'm a storyteller. I work often in schools telling stories, so I like to go between the real and the noticed into the imagination and what could things be. And I was picking up this stick, and at first I was just again feeling the roughness of the bark and seeing, looks like some little insects or snails had eaten away the green algae off the stick, and just really noticing my stick and the strength of it and the diameter of it. But then it made me think, well, what could it be? And it could be a flute, because it's got some little holes on it, and you could pick it up and you can imagine. And then what would the flute be for? That it could be a flute that has a power to call things. Maybe it calls animals that I might need to my help by blowing it on there.
Meanwhile, I'll perhaps give a little prompt for a poem or a story that you might like to write when you've had a bit of time in your spot and you've done that nice exercise that Martin said of just, I see, I feel, the things you like about the season. You could also then start zooming in. One of the great things to do when you're outside in nature is you start noticing things you hadn't seen. And really, first of all, you see the big picture. When we first walked into this garden, we just saw a lot of trees, some fallen leaves. We've sat down here and we were still for a while. You start to zoom in and zoom in. And it's really great to just pick something and really zoom in on that. If you imagine a film sort of going in, and just look at it, maybe hold it, touch it, as you said before, and think about what it looks like, maybe write a little bit about what it sounds like, if it had a voice, and then what's it doing? It's almost like a painter would do a kind of, choose something to do a painting and really look at the detail, and as you're expressing it in your writing or drawing, you start to work out a bit more about how you're feeling yourself, and also maybe project a little bit into another character of perhaps a leaf or an animal in wildlife or an insect, and using its voice and seeing the world from a different point of view, which is quite fun, and it's a great way to explore. So one of the things Martin and I really love about this book that we've taken our inspiration from today is that Dara writes a diary about the things that he can see. So he goes out into nature and finds things, he does some research, and tells us about those things, but he also talks a lot about his feelings, and it comes quite naturally as the more he writes, that the more he's able to express himself. And during the course of the book, he finds out that he's so passionate about nature that he wants to do something about it in the wider world. He wants to use his voice, and even though he was a bit younger when he wrote this, he was 14 and 15, he starts to become an activist in climate change, and he realizes through his words that words have power, and because he's so passionate about nature, he's able to persuade other people. So that's a really big thing that can come out of something that seems quite normal and everyday, like writing a diary. Just finding out what you're passionate about, what is really important to you in the world, and what you feel strongly enough about that you might want to stand up and defend it, or one day get involved with, like climate change, which is important to all of us.
The smell of the earth in autumn is so different, intoxicating. A massive exhaling of compounds that swings my senses. And while the land breathes out, I breathe in deeply, covering the incoming dread of the newness to come. New school, new people, new navigations. Grief, although not as raw, still pulses. These past months have been tumultuous, and I must not think about the waste, the days lost, Instead, I focus on the rising. I am rising from the darkness too, and feel the light and the warmth of the soil as I lie on the forest floor below a massive birch tree. We'd like to invite you to keep your own diary of a young naturalist. That means writing in a diary or journal, or perhaps even recording audio clips on your phone every day over around a week. In this diary, you might include any nature you see or experience, anything that you are really able to pay attention to in the season, anything that you're drawn to or learn about in nature, and also include your own thoughts and feelings. You can have some fun with writing, drawing, sticking things in. Good luck.